May the 4th be with you. Hi, my name is Steve, and I work for Civic, Nebraska, the owner and host of this new virtual hub. Hope you're enjoying it, and I hope you've gotten a chance to look around a little bit. It was just a funny coincidence that we decided to open our doors for this new virtual learning hub on May the 4th, which is sort of an unofficial holiday among Star Wars fans. The term "May the Force be with you," of course, May the 4th be with you is what it has now become. And even though it's not really a holiday, we like to pretend that it is, and we like to do all kinds of fun Star Wars stuff. And so for you today, I am going to read in 5 parts the favorite book of my 7th year on Earth. This book, the Star Wars Storybook, I got it when I was 7 years old, the year the movie came out, and I just thought it was awesome. I have to shut off this cool background that says Star Wars Storybook on it, because otherwise, watch, you won't be able to see the pictures. They just blur away. So I gotta turn that off, but it'll be cool because we'll be able to read and you'll be able to see the pictures. I'll share them with you. So I'm gonna shut this off. There we go. There's my background. And we're gonna go to a galaxy far, far away. You ready? Here is the Star Wars Storybook. Part 1. In another galaxy, in another time, on a planet named Tatooine lived a young man, Luke Skywalker. Luke longed for excitement, but Tatooine, millions of miles from the center of the galaxy, seemed far from the world of adventure. Luke lived with his Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. He eagerly awaited the time he could leave for the academy on another planet. There, he would join his friends and train to be a pilot. Luke stayed home because his Uncle Owen needed his help on the farm, but his eyes were on the stars and his heart was far away. There is Mr. Luke Skywalker, in case you've never ever seen him. My guess is you have. Farming was difficult on Tatooine. 2 blazing suns kept the planet as hot and dry as a desert. The people on Tatooine could get water only by taking it from the atmosphere, and they needed machines called vaporators to coax the moisture from the air. The vaporators had to be guarded from the roving subhuman creatures on Tatooine, the Jawas and the Tusken Raiders. The Jawas spoke in strange hisses and grunts, and their eyes glowed. They traveled in large vehicles called sandcrawlers, collecting robots and scraps of machinery to sell. The Tusken Raiders were bigger and fiercer than the Jawas. Raiders usually kept to themselves, but if they came into contact with humans, they were very dangerous. One day, Luke was adjusting his uncle's vaporator with the help of a worn-out, broken-down robot named Treadwell. He glanced skyward to search for a cloud. Not a sign, nor would there be until he got that vaporator working again. But very up high, a brilliant gleam of light caught his eye. Luke grabbed his macro binoculars for a better look. He wished he had a powerful telescope, but never mind. The binocs treated him to quite a show. 2 silvery specks, skyships for sure, were exchanging heavy bursts of fire. The sky was exploding with red, blue, and green flashes of light. If Luke had had the powerful telescope he longed for, he would have seen a small galactic cruiser racing through space on a wild zigzag course, zooming to the left, zooming to the right, but it looked as if the pilot had lost control. But he hadn't. He was skillfully dodging the red, blue, and green flashes of light that came from the weapons on a huge Imperial starship. The starship kept up the attack on the cruiser, and suddenly, though Luke was too far away to hear, there came the roar of an explosion, then another, and another. The galactic cruiser shook as the flashing light beams finally hit their mark, the main solar fin. The battle was over. The Imperials pulled up alongside the cruiser. There you go. There's Luke looking up. Inside the corridor of the cruiser, 2 robots, you know who these guys are, R2-D2 and C-3PO, had been tossed around. C-3PO was tall and shaped like a human. His exterior, usually shiny and golden, was now covered with dust and with dirt. And it was dented from having been thrown against walls and floors. R2-D2 was short and squat, with thick, sturdy legs that kept him better balanced than C-3PO. During explosions, he had taken much less of a beating. The 2 robots looked different from each other because they had been built for different purposes. R2, in his own way, was as skilled as 3PO, But because 3PO was more like a human, he fancies himself smarter than his smaller friend. The tall robot was a worrier. Sometimes he nagged at R2, even scolded him. But he really didn't mean anything by it. R2 was level-headed and dependable. The two were pretty darn good friends. Though caught in the battle, the two robots did not know what the fighting was about any more than Luke did down far below on the surface of Tatooine. They had never heard the history of the galaxy, of how the evil Imperial forces had overthrown the old Republic with its good laws and its wise Senate. And they had never heard of the kind, protective Jedi Knights who had watched over the Republic for centuries until they were destroyed. Now, the power-mad Emperor of the Imperial forces ruled unjustly, without regard for right or wrong. After many years of Imperial tyranny, a rebel alliance had formed. It was now fighting bravely to bring back the ideals of the old Republic. The galactic cruiser in which R2 and 3PO were traveling was one of the rebel ships. R2, listen, 3PO said in his worried way. The captain has shut down the main reactor and the drive. We'll be destroyed for sure. This is madness. Madness. Okay. R2 stayed calm. His senses were slightly sharper than C-3PO's, and he used them now to figure out what was happening. As R2 listened, he reported to C-3PO in his own mechanical language. Lights blinked and winked busily in his head as he beeped and he chirped. All at once, the crew of the rebel ship dashed through the corridor. They looked worried, and they carried their rifles ready for action. As the crew disappeared around a corner, R2 and 3PO heard firing. With a blinding flash, a big hole tore open in the roof of the corridor, and the Imperials jumped through, firing as they came. The robots ducked a barrage of deadly energy beams that shot past their heads. Smoke filled the corridor. In the confusion, 3PO and R2 were separated. The Imperials had boarded the ship, but the brave rebels were not about to surrender without a fight. What a battle! The Imperial officer leading the attack against the rebel crew was a man feared by everyone. He was Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. Vader was taller than most men. He wore flowing black robes, and his face was masked by a frightening black metal breath screen. Vader seemed surrounded by a cloud of evil. He strode through the corridor of the ship, passing and ignoring the robots. There you go. There he is, coming through the corridor. When the smoke cleared, 3PO spotted R2 at the far end of the corridor. A beautiful, white-robed human was leaning over R2, touching him with a small, graceful hand. Or was 3PO imagining her? The haze from the battle made it impossible to be sure. When 3PO reached the end of the corridor, no human was in sight. He decided not to mention the white-robed human. He didn't want R2 to think his wires were crossed and he was not thinking logically. Well, R2, 3PO asked, what are we going to do now? The Imperials will think we know something. They'll take us apart and use us for spare parts for the robots. But R2 wasn't listening. Ignoring 3PO's complaints, he headed down the passageway. R2 marched halfway across the ship. Finally, he stopped in front of a life pod hatch. 3PO caught up to him. We're not allowed in an emergency life pod, said 3PO, greatly alarmed. It's for humans only. Get away from there. As R2 climbed into the pod, he chattered at 3PO in a rapid-fire series of beeps, whistles, gurgles, and whirs. Mission? What mission? Shouted 3PO. You've gone mad. And don't call me a mindless twerp, you overweight blob of grease. I'm staying here. Suddenly, there was a deafening explosion. 3PO changed his mind in a big hurry. He jumped into the life pod. R2 flipped switches, pushed buttons, and the two robots zoomed off into space. There's the woman. There's the argument. And zoomed off into space. Okay. Back in the Imperial ship, Darth Vader was seething. He was sure the rebels had discovered the secret plans for Death Star, the powerful new Imperial space station. As soon as Death Star was completed, the Emperor and his evil forces would be able to use it as a base to rule the entire galaxy. Your ship comes from Alderaan, the Dark Lord thundered at a poor rebel prisoner. I know all about the alliance to restore the Republic. Is any of the royal family on board? I know spies have transmitted information to your ship. I want to know what happened to those data tapes. The rebel denied everything, saying only that his ship had been on a diplomatic mission. Vader whirled, faced his Imperial officers, and ordered, search that ship from end to end. Tear it apart if you must, but find those tapes. I must have those plans, and bring me all the passengers alive. Imperial stormtroopers spread out to search the rebel ship. As one of the troopers entered a small passageway, he saw a flutter of something white. What luck! Though he didn't know it, the trooper had discovered the Princess Leia Organa, member of the royal family, youngest member of the Imperial Senate, and the guiding force of the rebellion. "Take her alive," the trooper commanded over his tiny condenser microphone. "Set your pistols on stun," the princess shot first. Two troopers went down. Before she could shoot again, a bright green ray from another trooper's gun hit her in the side, and she slumped to the deck. Princess Leia woke to discover her hands tied behind her. The troopers marched her to a hallway and up to the large hole that had been blown in the side of the ship. The passageway now led from this hole to the Imperial cruiser. There's Leia. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There you go. Love the hairdo. Suddenly, Darth Vader's dark shadow loomed large above the princess. The Dark Lord was delighted. He had captured a very valuable prize. Princess Leia was startled, but she managed to look and sound calm. "So it's you, Darth Vader," she said. "The Imperial Senate will condemn you for attacking a diplomatic mission." "Don't play games with me, Your Highness. This is no diplomatic mission. You are a traitor. You have been in contact with rebel spies, and they have transmitted a set of secret plans to you. Where are the tapes that carry this information?" "I don't know what you're talking about," said the princess. "I'm a member of the Senate. I have no secret tapes." "You're lying," Vader snapped. "You're part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away." An Imperial trooper reported to Vader, "We searched the rebel ship, sir. We found no tapes, and nothing has left the ship but a life pod with no life forms aboard." The report did not satisfy Vader. He answered, "There might not have been life forms in that pod, but you've carried the tapes we're looking for. Send a party to find that pod." Inside the pod, as R2 prepared to land on the hot yellow surface of Tatooine, 3PO feared for his mechanical life. "Are you sure you know how to pilot this thing?" he called out. His question was answered by a series of bumps and thumps and quivers. The pod had landed. The robot circuits might never be the same, but both were in one piece. They were in a barren place with sandstone ridges in one direction and mile after mile of sand dunes in all the others. 3PO headed toward the dunes, moaning as he marched. "We must have been made to suffer. I'm still shaking from that headlong crash. You called it a landing. I've got to rest." But R2 refused to rest, and he turned sharply and headed off toward the ridges. "Hey," 3PO yelled, "where do you think you're going?" R2 answered with a stream of blips and bleeps, whirs and whistles. 3PO didn't like what he heard. "It's too rocky over there," he declared. "I'm going to go this way, and when you get into trouble, don't you come begging for me to help." For hours, 3PO trudged up and down the dunes. His thermostat was overheating. His joints were grinding from the sand. "This is all your fault," he shouted at R2, who was much too far away to hear. At that moment, way off in the distance, 3PO spotted some sort of vehicle. It was coming toward him. A ride! He was about to be rescued. Or so he thought. There you go. Remember the big snake husk? Ugh, creepy. The pod had landed on Tatooine not far from where Luke Skywalker was having an unexpected reunion with his friend, Biggs. Biggs was on a visit from the academy, and Luke wanted to hear all about it. The two friends talked and laughed for a while. Then Biggs got serious. "Luke, I have to tell someone, and you're my best friend. As soon as I get back, I'm going to join the Rebel Alliance." Luke was startled. Fun-loving, happy-go-lucky Biggs was going to be one of the rebels. "You can't do it, Biggs. You'll never make contact with a rebel unit. You'll be captured by the Imperials. You'll... "You don't know how bad things are, kid," Biggs interrupted. "Only the threat of rebellion keeps the Imperials from being even more evil. Out here on Tatooine, you don't hear much about the terrible things the Empire does. The rebellion is growing, and I want to fight for the side I believe in." The friends said a sad goodbye, Luke returning to the farm, and Biggs going off to fight for his belief. Luke couldn't remember ever feeling so alone. Poor Luke. What's he going to do? But we'll find out as soon as we start part